Hey Bays, it's Bailey and welcome back to another speed build. Today I am going back to my roots. I am originally from the New England region of the United States. It is famous for its foliage, its maple syrup, and just autumn in New England is so dear to me. It's got such warm, beautiful colors with the oranges and the reds and yellows. It's a whole vibe. I love wearing very comfy sweaters and scarves, and I love all things to do with apples. Pumpkin spice can bite me. Apple is where it's at. Just last night, I made my own apple cider from scratch. Unfortunately, I didn't add enough water, and I ended up basically with a pot full of burnt apple syrup. But Venom was here with me, and we did manage to save it by adding a whole bunch more water back into the pot, cooking it down, straining it, and then adding some apple cider vinegar to counter the burnt taste, and adding a bunch of maple syrup for sweetness. Pure maple syrup, of course. And we added rum, too. That also helped. Anyway, as you see the shell starting to come together here, you can see that what we're going for is kind of like an old barn farm stand type of exterior. I wanted to make sure that I had that high lofted ceiling with some of those longer strands of lights hanging down. And then I also had this kind of covered, I'm not sure what you would call this part that extends out to the side. I guess, sure, we'll call it an extension for now. But I wanted to have that in to have some of like the stalls where you'd put your produce. And I also added in a little cow shed and a chicken coop with the idea that it could be sort of like a petting zoo in addition to being a place where the owners of this barn, farm, whatever you want to call it, could collect produce to then sell. So I had a couple of different inspirations for this build. The first one that came to mind was from this episode of Queer Eye that featured a dairy farmer who, because the agriculture industry was starting to lose money, he had to diversify his income sources. So he opened what he called the Red Barn Ranch, which was kind of like a family-friendly, all-season fun type of function space that also had like a pumpkin patch, and he was starting to do things like farm-to-table dinners and open it for like business functions, weddings, meetings, and that kind of thing. And I thought that was a really cool idea to try and incorporate into The Sims. And I had seen a couple of other builds on Twitter that had that kind of like fall pumpkin patch kind of deal. And like, yes, I absolutely need to do this. And I recently did one, and I didn't even think at the time about the two being connected. I did, for a shell challenge, I did a kind of a barn conversion into a Winterfest themed tourist trap that had a photo studio with just pictures of children with Father Winter and a skating rink and a little Christmas tree patch. And so, yeah, now here's the autumn version of it. And I really, really wanted this build to just ooze New England autumn. And that just, oh God, there's this really beautiful pastoral charm that comes to mind when I think of autumn in New England. And, oh goodness, I miss it so much. And I'm getting all nostalgic and weepy here. Anyway, another inspiration that I had was like a local craft fair or farmer's market where local artisans could go and showcase and sell their wares. I went to one a couple of years ago, and it was massive. There were hundreds of different kind of crafters, and they had anything you could possibly want, any type of food, of like handmade goods. I bought so many gifts there for people. I bought maple syrup from Massachusetts, so good. I bought the most amazing natural homemade peanut butter. I had one that was an almond butter that was made with rosemary and garlic, and I had never thought to put like those kind of savory flavors with almond butter, but it was so good. My God, I'd never tasted anything like it, and now I want some. And they had like socks, ceramics, wood, photography, painting, tea, like anything you could possibly want, they had there. And I wanted to recreate that here. I didn't really give myself the space to put in as much variety of things here. But I did have a stall for knitted goods, a stall for flower arrangements, and this little woodworking table in the back where I originally was going to put the wood carvings there, and then I was like, wait a minute, why don't we put an easel back there too, and we can just pretend that this wood carver makes gnomes. So yeah, we have just a little gnome shop that seemed quite fitting for The Sims. And then outside, I ended up putting a couple of tables with just kind of like some old kitchenware, a couple of jars, pots and pans, the antique coffee pots and stuff. And that just seemed like a neat place for like, collected antique goods that people could buy. And of course, we also have the grocery stall and the garden stall on the other side. Later in the video, I will be nine keying and alt placing so many individual pieces of produce to fit them into buckets. Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, I just wanted to make this seem like a place that'd be set up where you could go and do your Winterfest shopping, and that'd be a fun place to go around Harvest Fest. Like I can picture families going here like the day before or after Harvest Fest and just going and having a good time. And oh God, I want to go to a place like this so badly. It seems it'd be so much fun. I can just imagine the smell of it, where you can smell like the if you live in an area that has deciduous trees that change colors during the seasons. It's got this, like, on the right day, it's got this very crisp smell to it. And then, like, after it rains, there's, like, a whole different smell to it. And then you smell, like, fresh apples. And think of, like, the slight crisp you get to it. And that nice sweetness that you have to them. Oh, God, it's making me hungry. And that, you know what, I can just sit here and just... I don't know what to say about this build other than I'm alt placing debug items to let me just talk delicious fall food words at you. And just, I'll even say them in my sultry voice. Cider donuts. And warm cider with a bit of cinnamon on top. Maybe a little bit of spiced rum mixed in, or no spiced rum. You can either have it ice cold or just heat it up so you see the curls of steam coming off the top. So good. Ooh, what else is good in the fall? Yeah, pumpkin pie. Yeah, apple pie. Whew. Is it getting hot in here, or is it just me? So yeah, it's something I've only recently started using the debug menu in my builds. My goodness, it's a game changer. Because there's so many cool things in it, especially with cottage living. We got a ton of cool debug items. So something I was doing, just playing around, trying to get inspiration for how to really like furnish and decorate this lot, was just going into the debug menu and just pulling out things that looked interesting to me and just placing them around to see where I could, what I could do with them. So I did that with like a lot of these little carts and like the bags of fertilizer, pretty much anything that just looked like it could fit the aesthetic. So here I'm furnishing the pumpkin patch, and I started out with just like putting pumpkins everywhere. And then I'm like, wait a minute, this is a pumpkin patch. And if these are supposed to represent pumpkins that are still growing, they're not all going to be like these uniform shapes in perfect rows. So I'm like, okay, we need to like diversify these pumpkins and get a little bit of variety in there for like how they're placed and what sizes they are. So that was fun to go in and do. So one thing I really missed in this build is I wanted baskets that I could put things in. Like just little empty baskets. But these buckets ended up working well. These are actually the pails that's used in the cow milking animation. And so these worked really nicely for putting in produce. So here I am just alt placing and 9-keying so many pieces of produce. So many apples. It's not as bad as later on trying to fill a mushroom cart. That took so long to fill the mushroom cart. And I tried to think of what would be on this farm realistically, so I think we ended up with, in these buckets, apples, potatoes, tomatoes. Oh god, what else? I don't remember what else. We'll find out soon. I think some kind of berry went in there too. I don't think that's all particularly realistic to, yeah, we have that giant eggplant in there too, just because I had to. And a few pumpkins right down there next to the mushrooms. What was I saying? Oh yeah, I don't know that this assortment of produce is particularly realistic to what the seasons were. I didn't check to see what seasons all of these things would grow in. I just wanted to have like a bit of a mix of colors, but with textures and shapes that made sense to go in those. Like I wanted to put carrots in those buckets, but the way the carrots lie in the game, they wouldn't really look right in the buckets. So we didn't go with that. I don't remember if I put carrots in the carts outside. I don't think I did, though. I think we did. I think we ultimately went with each different color of pumpkins, onions, mushrooms, and lettuce. But we'll get to that later. I also was lining up these fertilizers and then the seeds, and I decided to be cheeky and stack them up like pyramids. And I probably spent far longer than necessary doing that. But it made me happy to see them all stacked up, even though they're floating a little bit, but from certain angles and distances you can't really tell that much. But it did take quite a while to line those up. Now, one thing I don't like about how I built this lot was I still was on my limited packs run. So I built this using only the packs that I had used with the Cottage Bays LP. So that's Cottage Living, Seasons, Cats and Dogs, Nifty Knitting, and Laundry Day. And as you can probably guess from those 5 packs, and the fact that there are these tables around that you cannot sell things on, there are no selling tables in any of those packs. So this lot doesn't really function like how it probably should. So if I were to redo this lot, I would definitely install either Get to Work and turn this into a retail lot, so we can just set all of these individual sale items for sale. Although, good lord, going in and setting individual apples and pumpkins and mushrooms for sale would be terrible, and I would not recommend it. I think it could also work really well as the community space lot type from Eco Lifestyle. There are 2 different ones that could work nicely for it. One is a marketplace, which I've never played with that one before, just because I usually like putting in either the community garden or the makerspace. But from what I understand, that one just puts in a bunch of like market tables. And that would obviously work really well for a craft fair type thing. And you could sell all of your candles and your juices and stuff. So that would work really nicely on this concept of lot. The other one is, I think it could work well as a community garden too. Not quite the same idea, but you could definitely get that kind of farm stand, farmer's market type deal from a community garden. And you could put your own sailing tables in there too. No reason you can't. So I hadn't thought about it, but now that I do have it on my mind, I think someday I might like to go back and, with all of the packs installed, A, redo this lot, and B, since I have now a winter and a fall barn conversion, I kind of want to try my hand at doing a spring one and a summer one. I think that could be fun. Let me know in the comments if that's something you'd like to see. I'm just thinking like what you do for a spring one. Oh god, I can imagine like a garden, like a botanical gardens, or like a little tea shop, or oh god, that sounds like that would be cute. And for summer, I don't know, what do you do in a barn in the summer? Unless we make it like a beach house, but you wouldn't have a barn on the beach. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. Summer is, well, if this summer is any indication, my summer has been sitting inside in the air conditioning. And then turning off the air conditioning so I can record audio because the unit is right behind where I record. Yes, so here's the part of the show where I do a lot more 9 keying and alt placing to put individual pumpkins and things in their place. But I really like these debug carts. I just thought they were really cute, and I could picture people selling produce out of them. Also, I was talking about something else at the time, but you'll see like behind this, where the little mushroom is in the corner, I made like a little pumpkin painting table, because like my mind immediately thought, excuse me, my mind immediately went to the pumpkin carving station, but I had forgotten that that's not in seasons, that's in spooky stuff, which I did not have installed at the time. So it's like, okay, well, what else can you do with pumpkins? You can paint them. So let's just put a bunch of pumpkins on a table with the debug painting supplies from all those activity tables that many of us are so sick of seeing in so many different color variations. Like, can we maybe have something else for kids to do? Maybe? Just a thought. Yeah, whatever. And I put down the different, like, drinks glasses to be, like, the cups where you'd rinse out your paint brushes. I don't know. It made sense to me at the time. Some of you might look at it and be like, why they got drinks on the table? Is Mom there too? That was probably a bad stereotype. Stereotyping the wine moms. Oh, and goodness, I hated placing those mushrooms, but then when I got to the onions, I'm like, wait a minute, there's stacks of 3 onions? Oh, snap. Game changer. Say game changer more times in this video than real game changers say. Yeah, I am not a game changer, clearly, because I am very new at this. And I currently have 5 subscribers. Thank you so much for subscribing. I sounded sincere saying that, but genuinely, I appreciate you. Checking out my channel. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you like what you see, and I hope, if you want to see something else, or if you have any suggestions for things you want to see, please tell me. I don't know these things until you tell me. I was about to say I wish I could read minds, but really, no, I don't. I don't want to know what some people are thinking. But I don't even know what I'm thinking half the time. Oh, God. This video just got too real for a hot second. Oh yeah, something else I didn't talk about. Over there where Patchy's chilling out, I put a hedge maze. I wanted to make a corn maze, but there's no corn. There is no cornfields, and unless I wanted to individually alt place a whole bunch of hay bales, which you'll see later, or maybe you already saw, I don't know. I tried to do that for the little parking lot, and I gave up before I finished. Oh god, and here I was trying so hard to place a cow, but for some reason it wasn't letting me place one. So if you want to put a cow there, you'll have to go into live mode and have somebody put the cow in manually. I also really liked the idea of just purely for the novelty of it, putting a little parking lot for the cars. And I point this out in another video at some point, but I don't usually get into the whole like trying to guess the motivations of the Sims team and where they're dropping hints, but with the cottage living release, they are absolutely dropping hints about cars. You see so many cars in the world. There's an actual decorative car in the catalog, not just in the debug menu. And for some reason, every townie and non-playable sim, whatever their actual technical name is, every one of them, they keep thinking and talking about cars. It's like, that's just... I've never seen it that prevalent before, and that's got to be intentional. Like, you do not do these things by accident. So I'm not one to speculate normally about dev intentions, but, like, I will absolutely jump on the train for this one. We're getting cars, fam. If we do not get cars, go ahead, call me a liar. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah. So, yeah, you can see I'm working on the parking lot where I totally forget to continue that trend of placing those hay bales around the edges. It probably would have looked really cool if I did, but I got distracted by shiny things, and then by the time I had finished everything else and like moved on to terrain painting and landscaping and stuff, like once I reach that point, I get so tired, and I just don't want to go back and alt place things anymore. See, I struggle so much with landscaping normally. I see other creators do it, and they do it so beautifully, and I just... A, I don't know how to make it look that good, and B, I don't have the patience for it. But I tried to at least give something to just add a little depth to the landscape. I also really liked adding in these sunflowers, because I was so surprised we don't have sunflowers that look like what actual sunflowers look like in the real world, because like, they just have these little dinky ones, and like, if you live in an area that has sunflowers that actually grow, they grow so big, and they grow so many at a time. Like, you could have, like, a hedgerow made of sunflowers. And, oh god, I would have loved to see that. I don't know that that's necessarily relevant to cottage living, because I don't know if you see those in England. But you see them in New England. So, that would have been nice to see in Cats and Dogs, which... is modeled after like a Cape Cod style. I know that's more coastal, and I was from the... Okay, I can't tell my east from my west. Why can't I tell my east from my west? I was from the western part of Massachusetts, so we definitely see those kinds of things there. I don't know so much about the Cape Cod, Boston area. Oh, this is more Cape Cod than Boston. Oh my god, Boston would be so much fun to see in The Sims. Oh. I always say if I ever were a city, like, some people say they're New York, some say they're LA, I'd be Boston. we take no crap. And Boston's such a cool city because there's so much mix of old and new, because you look around it and there's this, old brick architecture from the 18th century right next to like a modern metal and glass skyscraper. And it's just so interesting to see those two things together. It's weird, and I love it. But anyway, now that we're getting out of the terrain painting, we're done with the build, so enjoy these wonderful screenshots. Like if you did, subscribe if you want to, but most importantly, take care of yourselves, bays. Love you. Mwah.